Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The budget resolution and reconciliation process is absorbing much of Congress's attention, staff time, and political oxygen. That focus is crowding the calendar for core governing work, including upcoming appropriations and must-do bills. Here to break down how the current focus reshapes the rest of the legislative calendar is Deputy News Director at Bloomberg Government, Loren Duggan. Loren, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
It's never a dull week in your corner of the world. Let's start with the budget resolution, DHS funding, and reconciliation. And what the heck is a votorama?
Well, votorama is when the Senate stacks up these votes, usually on amendments to a reconciliation bill or a budget resolution, and they're often a chance for the two parties to put each other on the spot on political issues. A lot of what we saw last week were affordability amendments offered by Democrats, peeling off a couple of Republican votes here and there, but most of these things fell along party lines. The only one I think that was adopted was about stopping illegal immigrants, and that was coming from Lindsey Graham, and everybody voted for that one, so that one was adopted. But that's to the budget resolution, which is the first step in the process of passing a reconciliation bill, because you need the resolution, then the bill. And we saw the Senate get that done overnight, Wednesday into Thursday. And the big question is, will the House be able to do that as well sometime this week? That's certainly what Republican leaders are hoping.
What are the main provisions in this budget resolution?
So most of the budget resolution parts don't matter. What's at the heart of it is this instruction to two committees to write legislation to fund Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Border Patrol. Those are the two elements that were removed from the DHS spending bill that had kind of ping-ponged around before the Easter spring break that they took. So they need to first adopt this resolution, then get the committees to write the bill, and then move forward there. The issue we might run into is some members want more than just this ICE and Border Patrol funding. They are being told there might be another reconciliation bill, but I'm not sure that everybody believes there's either enough time or political will to get that done, and we'll see if leaders can thread that needle to get them to adopt this and then move forward on the spending bill, and then maybe coming back for another round, which again would take a lot of time.
Well, the spending bill itself, the legislation, has got to take some time to craft.
It would. I mean, they kind of know what they're trying to do, right? Funding for these two elements of DHS for a few years. They could probably write that pretty quickly, and then they just need to process it. If they got to that point, they have to get this document, the first document, the budget resolution, adopted by the House first. And that's not going to be a slam dunk just because of the competing priorities.
We heard Secretary Mullins say last week he's got enough money for one more round of paychecks for DHS. Is that adding any urgency to the conversation?
It may. I think that people have seen what the administration has been able to do through its executive provisions and also using some of the ICE and Border Patrol money that was provided in last year's major reconciliation bill. So getting this skinny reconciliation bill through, getting the then DHS bill, which is still pending to cover the rest of the department. Those two things are necessary, but they're sort of in a sequence that needs to move, and we'll have to see if that train can really start pulling out over the course of the week.
And are there any hard and fast calendar deadlines in this process that will really tell us whether they're going to make it or not?
June 1 is on the calendar because that's when Donald Trump said he wanted the bill done by, not just the resolution, but the actual legislation. So we'll see if they can get that done. They are due to be out the week after this for a 1 week break, then come back and kind of have a busy couple of weeks before the Memorial Day break. So if they can get all these things lined up, get everybody to agree on the GOP side, they can probably move this forward. But that's a tight timeline.
It really is. And on top of that, we are moving into 2027 appropriations. We've heard some hearings. We've seen some bills make it out of committee. Where are we at in what used to be called normal order or regular order?
Well, the budget request came late, but Congress wasted no time once they got back from their spring recess to start having the hearings. And there's still a lot more of those to go, even as they move the bills. We've seen 2 get through the House full committee, 2 more through subcommittee, and I think we'll see some more full committee and subcommittee action this week. The timetable that appropriators laid out could have every bill done by the end of June, at least through committee. And then they'll talk about, I think, what to do on the floor and how quickly to move those. But really, they're trying to lay down a marker in the House for eventual negotiations that include the Senate and that will include the White House. So some movement there and pretty fast and furious and a quick pace on that. But that's for 27, even as we're still wrapping up this 26 action for the Homeland Security Department.
Well, how much does the uncertainty around DHS funding and the potential of one or two more reconciliation bills over the course of the summer impact the conversations of the 2027 appropriations?
I think it's feeding into it a little bit, but the appropriators work is separate from the reconciliation work. Different committees involved, budget writing the resolution, and then the Judiciary and Homeland committees writing the bill itself that will then go through budget perhaps. So the appropriators can move on their own. There are big questions left about Homeland and Defense, which may leave those till later in the process in the appropriations front. What are they doing with Homeland? Do they need to fund ICE or CBP, or have those been taken care of? And for Defense, they're still coming to grips with the $1.5 trillion request and the additional documents that came out last week from the Pentagon about that. So I could see those waiting until the end, but they're moving on not necessarily uncontroversial bills. Financial Services has a lot of the government agencies in it, and that one moved through committee. We saw Milcon VA, which is usually pretty bipartisan, and was coming out of the House. So they're making progress and maybe leaving the toughest questions till the end.
Loren Duggan is Deputy News Director at Bloomberg Government. Loren, let's leave appropriations and money for a minute and talk about the rest of the legislative agenda, because FISA, which we've touched on several times, is back at center stage.
It is. They gave themselves 10 days, and that 10 days is going to be up on Thursday. There's another proposal that will go through the House Rules Committee. They'll try to get it on the floor, try to get enough support on it. I think it's 3 years with some tweaks in it, different than the proposals that they dealt with a couple of weeks ago, which was the 18-month administration proposal. That didn't go anywhere. And then a 5-year with some changes. That didn't go anywhere. So they're trying to work this through. FISA is not a party line issue. It sort of unites the civil libertarian and civil liberties wings of both parties, and then some, other groups within the parties as well. So when you have those dividing lines, it's hard because the policy questions and the procedure to get to those can sometimes be different coalitions, and they have to navigate that. So we'll see what they can do there in the House and in the Senate. There's going to be a tight timeline on that as well. As they're trying to count heads on the budget, they'll have to count heads on that as well.
What are the real sticking points on getting to agreement on FISA?
A lot of it comes down to warrants and kind of trust of the government with this process, and where there is disagreement and where there's this coalition seeking change. Again, it can be Democrats and Republicans in both chambers who might not see eye to eye on very much else, but they see eye to eye on this. So if they can get to some language that gives them some maybe reassurance that the warrants, so that these things aren't being abused in their eyes, that might allow them to move forward. So the nature of that language is pretty tricky, and getting to the right spot will be as much a science as an art here.
Speaking of science and art, let's talk about agriculture. The Farm Bill. That's usually one that manages to make it through in a pretty bipartisan way. It's coming back to the floor.
The House is taking up its version that the Agriculture Committee put out a few weeks ago. This has been delayed a few years. They've been extending it a year at a time, and they're trying to do something with this year. Several of the programs in the Farm Bill were dealt with in the Reconciliation Bill last year. The One Big Beautiful Bill touched those programs as well, in some ways making cuts to SNAP and some of the nutrition programs that are a part of that bill, along with the farm support. So we'll see if they can get enough support to get this bill over the line as well. If they get it through the House, they still have to find a version in the Senate and reconcile there. Maybe they can get that done over the course of the year. That's probably a priority for the agriculture state members who would like to see that wrapped up. Again, it's been delayed a couple of years, and they'd like to rewrite key provisions there too. So
I want to wrap up on an issue that, for me, kind of captures the zeitgeist of what's going on the Hill, and it is Senate confirmations. We've seen a number of senior folks leave the administration lately for a variety of reasons. We've heard people pulling their nominations because they've been sitting for over a year waiting for confirmation. And now we have comments coming out of the Senate to the administration saying, if anybody's going to leave or you're going to fire anybody, do it soon. What is going on, and why is this issue kind of coming to a head now?
Well, the personnel changes, we've had a couple cabinet secretaries leave, and then we've had some people pull out, like you said, and some people might move forward. Kevin Warsh, who was nominated for the Fed with the end of the DOJ investigation on Friday and shifting to Inspector General, maybe his can move forward. But there's a political reality, and that's people are worried about the November elections. And if the Republicans were to lose control of the Senate, they would lose the keys to that confirmation process being in their hands. So there's some concern about that. Getting people through as quickly as possible will be a goal this year, or they'll have to turn to some acting positions, as we've seen in the past in both administrations. In Trump and Biden, we saw some acting folks hang on for a long time or switch around. So, but if you're going to get them through, they'll probably need to move pretty quickly to get them through and see if the committees can get through the work while they're also doing all these other legislative things at the same time. It's no shortage of things to tackle.
I think my favorite quote was from Senator Tillis, which said, "Do the math. There aren't that many days between now and then."
There are not.
I've been speaking with Loren Duggan. He's Deputy News Director at Bloomberg Government. Loren, thanks so much for this quick run through.
Thank you.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.